Cool. So, morning everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. So feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. It'd be great if you tell us about your work. Feel free to share your LinkedIn profile or your website so we can all connect with each other and share, resources and stuff going forward. So, as the name of this event suggests, it's all about telling your story. So I believe that story is one of the most powerful tools that we have. So when harnessed correctly, it can be an incredible brand building tool to create an emotional connection with our audience, right? And if we're doing, good work and we're trying to make the world a better place, we really need to harness every tool that we can get our hands on. And I'm so excited to be talking about this today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Will Saunders, and I am the founder of Goodwill Studios. We're a social enterprise, creative design and branding studio who help those who use their business to tackle some of the biggest challenges facing people and the planet today. So I believe that your business and your brand can be a genuine force for good. So I help people who are doing something great to stand out, cut through the noise, and change the world. And part of this is pulling together talented people and, audiences who are interested in this kind of thing to give us the tools we need to make that change. So hosting this awesome masterclass today are Owen and Lewis from the awesome Yorkshire-based video production company, Tell Studios. Give us a wave, guys. Yep. Their work is really powerful and they genuinely understand the power of story. And we're going to learn a lot from them today. And I personally cannot wait. Also, I'm delighted to be joined by Sarah from the Good Business Club, a wonderful team and a support group who help good businesses. So those who have a purpose beyond just making profit. So we have never needed that more than we do today. So I'm going to hand over to Sarah and let her introduce herself and Good Business Club, and then we will go from there. So over to Sarah.
Amazing, thank you, Will, and yeah, nice to be with you all today. It's a real pleasure. When Will and I first met, the discussion we had was all about this, around there are amazing initiatives and businesses out there doing great stuff. And one of the key challenges is, how do you tell that story to other people? How do you get in front of your audience? How do you get the recognition that you deserve? So I was really excited when he joined the club to help support other businesses in the community to do that. So I'll give you just a very short couple of slides on what the club is, because I think it does a better story. Can I share it of a story actually than I can just talking? But really the reason why we set up the club, and I say we, myself and my co-founder Ruth, is we've had about a decade of experience each about running and working with good businesses, and we know that it is really tough. That's a given. No one's cracked the code of how to do amazing work, make it super sustainable. It's a journey, and figuring that out on your own, that's the choice that we're making as business owners. And I know I'm speaking to the right community here because you've already stepped forward and gone to go, look, I need to learn more about a certain area. Where can I go to get that support? And that's why you're here today. And that's the kind of space that we create in the club. So all members of the club are businesses that pledge to do business differently, and we support each other on that journey. So it's not about being perfect businesses right now. It's about having a commitment to being a better business and problem solving, learning from each other, and yes, working with each other to be able to get to where we want to be. So we have a few things that we do and what's included in the club. So whether it's exploring what it means to be a good business through the community, learning from other people's experiences, showcasing your values to your audience, joining this movement and saying, this is the kind of business I want to be. And then also contributing to the community itself. So we create spaces where members can collaborate. So whether that's on an online forum and a problem solving session, an array of different opportunities. And we also help you get matched up to what you need, the resources, the people, the opportunities, making networking a lot easier so you can really develop your business with the right sorts of businesses. Here's a few things that some of our members say. Our members include everything from people who've got ideas and are looking at raising investment to kind of get them off the ground, to businesses that are 10 plus years old, established, still have challenges of their own, but also want to contribute back into the community as well. Everything from people who've got products, a lot of consultants and experts as well who want to be supporting the right sorts of businesses. So lots of different people doing lots of great stuff. And here's a couple of things as well. We just did a survey recently to really understand what's the impact of being part of this community. And I think it's really nice that a lot of members have actually created very authentic connections. But for me, the other things are also super important. So 60% of members have developed their business because of the input of at least one other member in the club. And about the same percentage have also secured new business or increased their income. So yes, we're a lovely bunch of people, and you'll definitely feel a sense of belonging, but we'll also help you move your business forward. So that's what we're about. If you want to find out more, if you want to have a chat with me about that, look at the Good Business Club, book a discovery call, and I'd be a pleasure to talk you through what we can do for your business.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yes, I actually failed to mention that I'm a member of the Good Business Club. I joined shortly after I learnt about the good work that they do, and I can attest to the fact that it is a great community, great resources, and not only is it a support group, but it's actually a great place to, like Sarah says, develop your business. So build connections who can work on projects together, source new clients, and grow good businesses, because the world needs more good businesses, more ethical people using the machinery of a business for good, more than just profit and exploitation and extraction. And I'm happy to be part of that. So now moving on to the main event, the guys from Tell Studio will be giving us an amazing masterclass on storytelling, brand storytelling, and everything we need to know. So over to Lewis and Owen to teach us everything they know.
Thanks so much, Will. Lou's gonna give you the preamble while I hopefully share my screen properly. 18 months of COVID and I'm wrong, so we'll see how well this goes.
Yeah, one of the limitations, I suppose, of film is that the file sizes are always pretty big, and Zoom doesn't particularly like that, does it? To get started then, first of all, thank you so much, Will, for inviting us today and for putting on this event. And thank you for your support as well, Sarah. I'm very aware that myself and Owen have got particularly strong accents, so we'll try to speak as clearly as possible. Any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them at the end as well, if there's something that you didn't quite catch. As a little introduction, my name's Lewis Mitchell and we've got Owen Seabrook. We're the co-founders of an independent film video production studio called Tell Studio. We help creatives and companies engage their audiences through the power of film and storytelling. And I suppose a question that you might be asking is why we're here to kind of talk about your brand and storytelling for sustainable businesses and social enterprises. The first answer to that is that we recognise the importance of sustainability in today's world. And not only that, you guys have got amazing stories to tell and they need to be told. So we're kind of here to help you do that. We also recognise the power of storytelling in being able to influence people's attitudes and behaviours. And Will's kindly invited us here to share some tips in order to help you guys do that and to better reach your own audiences. we have got a lot to run through. What we're talking about is incredibly nuanced and will be different for each one of you guys that are here today. So we're going to run through the slides quite quickly, but we've spoken to Will and we'll be able to send these out to you to kind of go through some of the more detailed slides at your own pace, and answer those questions and answer those things for yourself. There we go.
We're
It's
back.
much easier when you've.
Okay, great. So yeah, sorry. Thanks for the for the here's what we were referring to. So yeah, again, creative execution is the sort of knight in shining armor for competing with bigger brands. They are creative execution far and away increases profit. It helps businesses grow beyond where the business is based, what campaigns they've got running, what the product is, which is great for a startup brand or a new brand that needs to make a space for itself, because it's the creativity that creates the challenger brands. So we've got here a list of a few forms of different marketing. It says, you know, that video is the most difficult to create, but video isn't always the best tool for the job in terms of getting a brand story across. It's obviously very case by case. Some are easier than others. That might be more sort of beneficial to budget, that sort of thing. But the bottom line is that all of these are effective because they appeal to our emotions. And this is the key sort of takeaway from this presentation that we want to sort of give to you guys, is you got to think about your marketing in terms of the emotions that you're inspiring. So we are huge fans of this book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. If anyone's heard of it, it's a really interesting book on behavioral economics. But in it, he makes a case about the human mind being split into two different sort of mindsets, two different systems. One of them is primal, it's instinctive, it responds to signs, it's largely unconscious, and it actually accounts for 90% of our judgment making. Even when we think we've made a conscious decision with our more civilized, sort of like honed in the last 2,000 years mind, a lot of the times it's been informed by this sort of primal, subconscious kind of mind. So what the sort of link that we're making there is that emotions that you can get across in your marketing, they're going to appeal to your instincts. It's no work on your part to recognize them, and that's where the power of storytelling is in, because if you can engage people in a captivating narrative, if you can get across interesting emotions that are going to hook people in, then they're immediately going to build an association with your brand that is going to far and away outdo anything that is, you know, reason-based, percentage-based. It's all about getting those emotions in. So a couple of case studies. We've got Mighty P, who are pretty local. They make dairy-free milk alternatives. And rather than talking about maybe, you know, science in it or the fact that it's dairy-free milk, they are all about the goals that they're trying to do. So these top two images are from their website. They use less water, use less land, create less emissions, and cause less harm to wildlife. That feeds through into their branding. They're quite rock and roll, quite rebellious. They don't have the identity that you would expect from a sustainable FMCG food brand. They actually sort of, to me, they sort of shout out, you know, from the shelf, and I found myself paying attention to it and regarding it as a brand that, you know, has every right to be on the shop shelf. In the bottom corner, that was a GIF, it's been reduced to a PDF, but that was one of their social media deliverables that they posted on their Instagram. That it's like ticks appearing on a calendar, and then it flicks through to the Mighty Pledge talking about one of their. So again, using that sort of goal-based foundation, they're able to make sure that every single piece of marketing they put out makes a bold claim, tells a story, helps to sort of strengthen that association with what Mighty P are out to do. And then Lewis is just going to chat through this history from Patagonia.
Yeah, so similarly, and I think what Patagonia do incredibly well is they know their audience, and they know exactly what their audience is looking for, and they position themselves in a particularly unique way where they're not only providing film and video for entertainment, so you'll notice on there's videos of rock climbers and free divers, but they also position themselves where they're directly involved in key issues. So talking about soil, talking about what makes them stand out as a brand. And it's really subtle the way in which they kind of communicate their values and market their products. On there's a couple of examples where they're talking about a specific product, but for the most part, you'll just notice that the rock climbers wearing a Patagonia jumper, or that they're talking about how their materials are produced, but they won't directly kind of be selling you that product. It's more just in order for them to involve themselves with these issues and to showcase their values and where they stand on it.
So these are the things that you want to think about when you building in the storytelling element to your own marketing. You've got to think about, first of all, the obvious question is, who is your audience? What sort of are they going to recognize? What do they care about? And where is the overlap between what they care about and your core values? So think about what is getting you out of bed when you are running this business. What difference are you trying to make in the world? And what emotions do those lofty goals inspiring you? And if you start from that place rather than this sort of very droll marketing meeting, how can we generate conversions? Starting with the emotions is going to feed through right to the end result. It's going to cause, thumbs to stop scrolling. It's going to cause people to listen. And yeah, that's the sort of key point that we want to drive home. Good marketing makes use of emotions to stay remembered. You want to start with your ambitions in mind. At the end of the day, I don't know how much you guys agree with this, but something I feel pretty strongly about is good marketing doesn't bring the word marketing to mind. When I've had people tell me about stuff they've seen, they don't go, oh, have you seen the new, 30-second TVC from Cadbury's? They go, have you seen the drumming gorilla? It's about, giving people a reason to share things in a way that brings those emotions and things to mind. Bradley?
Sorry, it's just loaded up on my screen. But yeah, the next slide then is a couple of major pitfalls, I suppose, around key social issues and sustainability. When you are communicating, when you are telling your brand story, when you are marketing, with social issues and with sustainability being so divisive, there's a couple of things to watch out for. So the first one is stay positive. For the past 50 or so years, kind of the environmental message has tried all sorts of different ways of doing it, and something that's been tried, tested and proven is that negative language, focusing on the issue, isn't effective. Focusing on hope and enabling your audience to make the change that you want to see is a much more effective way of connecting with them. Not only that, and this kind of relates back to the two case studies that we gave earlier, really know your audience. It's more important than ever when you're focusing on a key sustainable or social issue, to know your audience. If part of your audience don't have traditional sustainable or don't lean the same way on an issue that you might necessarily, then you have to communicate with them in a way that appeals to them. So the communication style, surprise them with a communication style. Think outside the box, come at it from an original perspective, from their perspective, and communicate in a way that surprises them. I think Mighty P do it really well in that the branding's rock and roll. And I mean, if you go back 10 years even, was Quorn, would you consider Quorn, branding rock and roll? I don't think so, but it's starting to kind of change, and I think being aware of that and utilising that to your advantage is pivotal for sustainable brands and social enterprises.
So knowing all that, it's time to then take your, what you understand in your business into video marketing. And obviously this is, what we know really well, and where we want to sort of share some tips on how to get started with video marketing. So reiterating, first of all, the goal influence. Think about, metrics are all well and good, but what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get people to have the best plant-based experience they've ever had? Are Are you trying to get people to change the way they think about reusable plastics? Start from that point and feed your your marketing campaigns from that sort of influence, because that's what's gonna give your content that heartbeat that people are gonna feel on the other end. Secondly, collaborate. So these, the skills to tell these stories are the skills. You are an expert in your business, but it might take a lot of time. It might take a lot of energy to produce this sort of stuff. So work with teams. If you've got friends, if you've got people that you'd want to work with, partner up with, if you want to work with a video production company or a producer, work together to make something that is better than what you could make on your own, because at the end of the day, it's only going to increase the impact of the final result. And on that, test your ideas out. So speak to people, friends, family. Just say, I'm thinking about an idea for this. I'm thinking about something bold to do with my brand where we're going to shoot for this target. What do you think? And they might have an idea. They might have something they've seen that was really engaging to them. And that's something that you can build in to just strengthen that idea for your video content. Fourth, have a budget. This one's pretty key. It can be a little, it can be a lot, it can be time, it can be money, but go into these projects with a realistic idea of what the investment's going to be. Video projects, they are pretty meaty. They do take a lot of effort. They do take a lot of thought. You help yourself by sort of for them accordingly in terms of what it's going to take to get this thing sort of off the ground and rolling. And finally, write a brief. And this is whether you're going to collaborate or whether you're just going to do it yourself. A brief is a really good way of getting your ideas on paper. It doesn't need to be the start to finish. You don't need to, preconceive the entire film in your head before you do it. In fact, the point of a brief is to get the must-haves down, but leave the door open for creative development. So we've got a few tips on writing a brief that we will bring up again in a second. But for now, that is the end of our presentation. Go away and tell your stories, but not after you've had the Tell Studio video handbook. So we've thrown together a little PDF, or rather, we're going to throw it together. It's 5 lists of 5 things to get you started with creative video storytelling. So if you want to know what free creative software is out there to make some films, if you want to know who to listen to learn from, to make your own videos, if you want to read some good books, if you want some dirt cheap filmmaking kit to get you started, and if you want some tips on writing a good brief, let us know. I think Will sort of help circulate, but we want to help you guys. We'll send over this PDF, and hopefully that can get you started on your creative storytelling journey. But yeah, I think that sort of finishes us off. 11:31, not bad. Anything I've missed there, Lewis?
No. As well as that, just if you've got any questions or anything we've said today that you kind of want to discuss with us, feel free to get in touch. We love a chat. Yeah, we're on LinkedIn, and I'll share our LinkedIn and our website details in the chat now. But just if you want to collaborate with someone, we're more than happy to talk about. Sorry, if you want to talk to someone, we're more than happy to talk to anyone about a film project that they've got going on. It excites us, and we'd love to be able to help in any which way we could.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for your insights and for those slides. We got there in the end. I think it was worth waiting for. There's a few questions in the chat popped up, but I've actually got one myself. And this is something that I've dealt with because my experience is like building brands and the visual identity. And you're right that, everything starts off with what it is you're trying to achieve, who it is you're talking to, right? And what would you say to somebody who says, well, our audience is so different, we've got this product or a service for, pretty much everybody, right? How would you tackle that problem, and what would you say to filter down that message?
That is a tough one. What a curveball to start us off. I think this is where these initial chats come in, where sort of we're talking about step 2, collaborating. this is a big part of that video production process. It doesn't just start with, okay, get to work shooting something. The first part is very often, and something that we internally, we do this a lot, is we kind of have this ethos of making sure to have as many conversations as possible before we actually nail down a key idea. Because the more we talk to the client, the more we talk to people who have this idea, it can start off as pretty fuzzy, but then it just gets tighter and tighter the more we nail it down. Which is really just sort of applying design thinking to a project or a business. I would say optimistically, I think there are common threads in any idea in terms of reaching the audience. I think, you know, we're all sort of human beings. There's a way to make a product have a consistent strand that fits a lot of people. But there's always approaches that can sort of play a few instruments, as it were. So one strategy to talk about social media is about, you know, developing content pillars. So what are, say, 3 or 5 things that your brand represents, and then developing specific content for each of those pillars, and you can just sort of cycle between the, you know, between the 3, between the 5, or however many. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. But it's one to chat through, definitely. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I think I'd be hesitant to just go out and try and communicate and appeal to absolutely everybody. I think you can still have quite a wide kind of focus by identifying like a customer segment, start there, and yeah, take it from there, and then kind of progress. I think, yeah, even if you have quite a broad audience, I think you can still pull out some themes from that and have specific kind of stories or communication, marketing and strategies to target those specific groups. But the beauty of what you guys all do is that it is an emotive thing, and there are so many brilliant things that you can communicate and talk about. And I think good sustainability and tackling issues in a holistic way. You can talk about the economic impacts, you can talk about the environmental impacts, you can talk about the social impacts, and there's many ways that you can kind of dress it up. So if your product is for everyone, just coming at it from those different perspectives and being aware of those different perspectives, and which kind of segment you know, is appealed to the economic argument, and which is, you know, and yeah, just being aware of those and yeah, sorry, that was a lot of waffling. Trying to appeal to those specific values for each segment.
Yeah, that is a good point there, because, you know, especially if you're a social enterprise or you're working on something that is, you know, ethically made, but some of your audiences might not be 100%, you know, sold on that as the main issue. They might just want that good product that just happens to have been ethically sourced. I suppose there are different routes in to kind of reach those people. So in the whole kind of like vegan and plant-based world, there's a few arguments about, you know, doing vegan by stealth. So it might not need to say vegan or a big green V on it. It's just a really nice, tasty piece of food, and it's almost like it's sold maybe on the fact that it's a great product, or it's healthier. It might be a bit more sustainable if they fear that, you know, the V word might put people off their target market. So it's interesting that we've got these different tools and different stories that we can tell that lead us to the same point, right?
Definitely. I think this is what the point about protective cognition that I made earlier as well, about avoiding that polarizing. Yeah, if your audience is put off by the V words, then avoiding that and finding out what does get that person excited. Is it the fact that it's, you know, the meatiest tasting meat alternative food out there? Then play on that, play on the smoky flavors, play on, you know, tell the story of how it got onto that plate. Then yeah, I think it's about identifying and really, I mean, anyone who's been to a talk or marketing knows has heard before, like identify your market, but I think it's so important for the sustainable businesses and brands and social enterprises, because what you do could put someone off, and being aware of who your audience is and avoiding that is key.
Yeah,
I think it's a great point as well, just to add on to that, you know, you don't have to do the obvious thing. You're saying about, you know, a vegan product doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, vegan at surface level. You know, there can be more to products than the obvious sustainable sort of pros to it. So yeah, don't think that you sort of pigeonholed with, oh, we have to say that we're vegan.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah's asked a fantastic question. Would you like to unmute yourself, Sarah? And
more than happy to. Yeah, thanks, guys. I was just thinking, on like a practical level, especially when this is very new to them and they don't really know what their story is or like what to really lean on, where would you say like it's a good place to start, or an activity that they could go away today and actually do, of like, actually, where do you start with finding what's worthwhile a story to tell?
For that, I think there's a couple of different things, and I've forgotten the name of them, where you can, there's exercises where you can identify your values. You can complete an orbit diagram, which is kind of where you want to be in the next 5 years, and it's got different branches coming off. And anyone, I think you can find resources for that online. And there's another, I'm really sorry, there's another activity to help you identify values that are fun. I'll have a look in a second when the next question is being answered, and put it in the chat. But I think finding out, the heart of your company, what it is that you do and those values, and what emotions are linked to those values. Is it about inclusivity? Is it about warmth? Is it about being open and kind, or is it more about producing like the highest quality, I don't know, meat burger or whatever? Sorry, the food's in my head now, it's lunchtime, isn't it? And is it about quality and like professional? Is it more of a professional message? I think it's really important to start from that point. And I think as well, speaking to people, what do other people feel when you talk about your product? You know, start with friends and family, and then work up to people on the train and strangers, and just run them through your idea and ask them what it is that they feel when you talk about what you do. And from there, I think you can start developing those messages. But fundamentally, it's really important to know what it is that you value, and that and the emotions that you want to evoke in your audience.
That's great, thanks.
Yeah, people, you've probably just seen me just pull up Google and start typing in like business value, identify and exercise and stuff. I think there's no shortage of quick things that you can do to just help nail things down. A good mentor of ours had an approach that he did, where he filtered down everything he cared about to 3 keywords, and they sort of underpinned everything he was passionate about. So that's possibly one way to start, and I think it's a really good thing to do that, because it helps to create a confidence in the decisions you then go on to make. I think especially with the video marketing space, there is a lot of talk and a lot of people who will say that this style is better, that style is better, this camera's better, this camera's better, and it can be confusing. You need almost like a sort of manifesto of self-belief that you can rely on to say, as long as what I'm doing ticks these boxes of authenticity that fit what I represent, what my brand represents, then you can be confident that your video marketing is going out and doing the job it needs to do.
I like that. And also there's one exercise that I like to do, excuse me, is like, once we've identified like the value systems, also kind of like challenge yourself on that as well. Like, so what's the value of that value? Because if we're saying we stand for, our value is honesty, it's like, okay, that's good. However, if in some ways that's kind of an expected value, or maybe unless you are existing within an industry that, you know, is kind of a very dishonest industry, that might not be a kind of unique selling point. You know what I mean? It might be the fact that you want to kind of change your values into verbs and say, so because we have a value, this is the action from it. And, you know, that can then be threaded through a story and produced, you know, that actually becomes something that you produce within the kind of video and other branding elements that you do. So yeah, I like that point you made about, you know, identifying the values. Have another question here from Charlotte. Charlotte, would you like to unmute, or shall I read it out for the group? Wow, that's a great echo. Oh, you're in the same room. I'll just read it out to the group, no worries. So Charlotte asks, do the same principles of storytelling apply to both film and marketing, like narrative arcs, etc.? That's a question. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would also say, you know, this isn't something that you need a film degree to understand either. You don't need a formal education. I think everyone has it within them to understand the story. Video marketing comes down to getting across a message, and if you can do that in a way that's interesting, then you are doing the same thing that a film does to get across a narrative arc or a, you know, the feeling of watching the film. In my mind, there's no difference between a film on TV, a commercial, an ad before YouTube, or, you know, like a TikTok. There's no difference in terms of each of those has the job of having to communicate a message. And if you are clear and you're aware of your audience's vernacular, you're aware of the things that your audiences will recognize, then it's the same processes. There's also the question of, you know, production value. Do you need a film's production value to be able to make good video marketing? There's pros and cons. Obviously, a premium look is going to make people see you as authoritative, is going to make people take you seriously because you have that same aesthetic that we've come to recognize with premium looking brands or, you know, premium looking films. But not every piece of content needs to look like that. There's, you know, you can do stuff on your iPhone if you want something that feels intimate. If you want to make something that's homemade, like social media based content that's about, you know, tips you can do at home or ways that you can, there's literally no shortage of them, recipes you can make, life hacks, all that sort of stuff. Filmed on a phone is what people expect. It's what people would relate to more in some cases than, you know, amazing photography, amazing videography. So yeah, that would be my sort of take on that. But yeah, in short, I think definitely, you know, storytelling applied to both.
I think just to add to that as well, with the with our PDF that we mentioned at the end of the presentation, we'll have some kind of pointers on how you can kind of utilize some of the things that we've talked about and some of the techniques of filmmaking for yourself at home. We've got a list of YouTube content creators that do a really good job of kind of explaining how to film an interview setup or explaining how to put together something that's punchy and that will grab your audience like that. So yeah, there's just to mirror what Owen said, like I think the two of the same, and you can definitely borrow techniques from film in order to make your own storytelling better.
Because that's the thing, isn't there? Like, especially thinking about the different channels we have. There's obviously film, there's like feature length ads and such, but social media, you know, and it's kind of a perpetuating thing where our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. It's almost like your challenge gets bigger and bigger if you need to communicate something within 2 seconds, you know, or 5 seconds. It's like, how do you kind of, you know, get the values through that? In fact, and just to kind of pick up on Charlotte's second question, can can you give an example of value portrayed in a video, an ad, and maybe include my question about how do you deal with, time restraints of the video itself?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two examples. One is the Nike has it's something about Londoners. I can't remember the exact strapline, but it's about all the different characters that live in London, and that is an amazing one. For Nothing Beats a Londoner. That's it. Let's just quick on the Google and reminded me. Nothing Beats a Londoner. Nothing Beats a Londoner. It's like whirlwind view of every single type of personality, interest, hobby in London, every single sort of background. And also it's a sort of multimedia approach. There's like claymation in there, there's film, there's special effects, there's all sorts. It's mental. Lewis has just dropped it in the chat. Please have a look at it because it's crazy. But it gets across this amazing story. And nowhere in there is talking about Nike trainers are guaranteed to last. It's all about values and the important, things that people hold dear to themselves. It's about that pride of being a Londoner. It's about speaking to the audience that Nike care about. Another example, just that you've brought to mind, talking about having a short space of time, Will, is Apple. A good few years ago now, I think it was like sort of 2016 maybe, or 2015, they released a 107-second iPhone announcement, and they actually sort of set a new style that every other phone company started to copy. And it was this style where a single word would appear on screen at a time, in time with music. So your brain sort of tunes into the rhythm of the music. You see a single word in the middle of the screen. Those words obviously create a sentence that tells you about the new feature of the new iPhone. And it's a split second. It's literally, it's if you want to sort of, if you want proof that subliminal messaging works, because it's amazing that you can take in every single word of this 107-second ad, but you only see each word for a fraction of a second. And it does it in a really impactful way. This one uses a lot of animation, uses a lot of motion graphics, so it's not actually too reliant on film. So that's another one. Yeah, is there any ideas that you've got, Lewis?
This one, it's not gonna. You might not have seen it, Evan. Sorry, we've been in Sydney, but during lockdown, I think it was for Virgin. I saw it. There was a montage of, it's a coronavirus specific one. Sorry, guys. But there was like a montage of things that people had filmed and obviously sent into Virgin just on their phones, and like viral. Loads of, I don't know if it was a mixture of viral videos as well. I think it was set to Ben Howard, like really emotive, kind of keep your head up. I think it was that song, music. And whenever that came on, I got goosebumps, and like I could feel myself like becoming emotional watching it. And I mean, it's annoying that it is for Virgin at the end of the day, but I think it was an absolutely fantastic piece of film. And obviously at the time, everyone's emotions were heightened because of the lockdown. But for me, the value of sticking together and of unity and come on, we've got this kind of maybe a little bit of kind of like British pride, and that was in there. And I think for me that was a recent one that that really struck a chord.
Awesome. So there's lots of techniques that we can do when we might not have maybe the actual physical time or the budget for a larger length video. Can be quite creative in getting the message across. And maybe we don't need to say words like, Lewis, you just mentioned. If it's a very human story, perhaps there's something that's quite authentic that we can tap into, to kind of help our good cause, without needing to tell the entire story in that space. As long as we know the story we're trying to tell, we can perhaps summarize it. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I think it's back to that. What's the word? The 90% the fast thinking, back to that instinctive kind of thinking, and yet we can pick up on those elements of a story, those emotions. We can pick up on that without the need for words, sometimes without the need for visuals. We can sometimes without the need for audio. You can communicate that really basically.
Awesome. Just conscious of time, we need to wrap up in a minute, but there's one more question that I'd like to pick out. So what, I can't remember what I wrote actually, but basically it's about how much of, as a founder of a good business or social enterprise, how much of your own personal story or your founder's story should you include in this kind of thing? And could you give any quick advice to the group on tackling that?
That's such an interesting question. This is something that I'm not sure we know the answer to this question. And I think when I said at the beginning, like everyone coming into this will have a different story, a different reason for being here. I think this kind of plays into that. It depends on how important your story is. It depends on how integrated your story is to that of the business. It's something that I can't give an answer. It's something that we battle with constantly, and I've got a background in sustainability and would love to have it everywhere and plastered everywhere and talk about it all the time. But I think sometimes it's not always relevant, and on a case-by-case basis. Maybe with this one, talk to people, test what kind of a reaction different people get from you telling them more or less of your founder's story. That's a really interesting question. Food for thought for all of us, I think.
I think another way of another thing to think about as well is it's okay to let your story evolve over time. Like there's not going to be serious negative repercussions of putting out content that says one thing and then deciding actually the tone of voice is slightly wrong there, let's tweak it. They're all sort of natural parts of the evolution of a business. They're all sort of things that you will find your way through. We've definitely done it where we used to have like a page on the Tell website that was all about Tell's origin, and then it was sort of decided to sort of shelve that a bit. But I think, yeah, it's definitely case by case. It depends on the product that you have, how core the team is to the customer experience, I guess. But I think there are sort of tips to include if you are going to go down that route. Things like bearing in mind any sort of brand community. Like, do you want to sort of talk about the story of the brand with, in a sort of like a we rather than an I? That's something that a lot of founders do when they start. If they talk about, I did this, I did that. It sort of creates a bit more inclusivity to sort of talk about the team around you. That's maybe one thing to consider. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I would say it sort of comes down to case by case. But what I would probably suggest is try a few different ones and see what fits well to that sort of. Earlier on I was talking about like building a sort of authentic manifesto. See what style and tone of voice works best in relation with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the point that you mentioned about it is an evolving thing. Your brand is always evolving. Especially with marketing. A marketing campaign can change drastically from one week, to the other. But I suppose if you've got your values set and you're basing everything that you do on those authentic values, the actual execution or the style can evolve, but the message might not need to change too much.
Yeah.
And it is quite interesting about, like the value of your own personal brand, especially if you're a founder, and the brand that you're building. I find that, there's value in having both. So, your own story, if you understand that, makes the brand you're building more authentic, because if you're comfortable knowing and owning your story, it's like, I've been through these challenges, I set out to do this in the world, and I've developed this business or brand around it. There's a point in which you could perhaps then build that brand so it's so strong that you can perhaps step back or bring other people under it. And that story is, I think, a powerful tool to kind of tie everything, neatly together. So a brand feels authentic because it actually genuinely is authentic, not just, a cold money-making business that looks nice with some swish marketing, right?
That's absolutely. I think that's something that, for me personally, is a really important thing: is authenticity in the way that you run your business, authenticity in the way that you present yourself. That's just a personal. It's a big thing for me, is making sure that sort of everything you do is authenticity, because otherwise, how will you sleep at night? I just wanted to point out as well, Margaret Beasley made an amazing comment before. Humans are storytelling apes, and I wanted to shine a light on that sentence, because that's probably going to be the best sentence of the day for me. If there's one thing to take away, then that's exactly what we are. We are apes that tell stories.
Yep. We are still sitting around the campfire telling stories, but that glow isn't fire anymore. It's a screen.
Blue.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a very nice note to end on. So thanks everybody for your time. Thanks for participating in the chat and asking your questions. And thanks for staying up late, Evan, or getting up really early. So check out the links in the chat. Make sure you connect with Lewis and Owen. Check out Tell Studios. Check out the Good Business Club. There's a lot of really good stuff going on, and we need to make positive changes now more than ever. So hopefully we've got some ideas to take forward and continue to make that good work. So have a great afternoon, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you again next time.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you so much.